on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Dylan.
Hi, Heather.
Please don't say it like that.
Yeah.
That gives me bad memories.
Yes. I would like to, okay, I'm going to do this off the rip, so I don't forget. I would like to thank today's sponsor, Cheryl.
Cheryl!
Who came in at our highest tier on Patreon.
Highest tier.
To support this episode and sponsor it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Dylan's going to make sure you get your money's worth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so other folks who might be interested in subscribing to patreon.com where they can access our bonus content, ad-free episodes, become a part of our Discord chat, can do so at patreon.com/mountainmurderspodcast.
That's true, Heather.
We also have other ways to support the show. If folks are interested in donating, we have a Venmo, we have PayPal.
Yeah, we discussed this. Some people don't, have never used that Patreon or something like that. But if you want to make a one-time donation, you can do it through those other means, Venmo and PayPal.
Yeah, Venmo at Mountain Murders Podcast and PayPal, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
And we certainly appreciate everyone who does that. And we obviously appreciate everyone who listens on a weekly basis.
How's it been going, Dylan? You good?
It's been going good. Just had a little ride through town.
A touristy Saturday in western North Carolina.
So yeah, let me paint a picture for people. So here it is, a beautiful cloud-free day in western North Carolina.
We live one block from downtown.
It's about, I don't know, mid to upper 50s. A rather nice day.
Oh, I took Rufus for a walk earlier, and I have on, of course, my sweatpants because that's my uniform. And a long sleeve shirt. I had to change into a t-shirt.
Right.
And halfway through the walk, I wished I had shorts on.
Yeah.
It's like a little too warm for this outfit.
It's a beautiful pre-spring day. And here we are driving down through downtown. And it never fails to tickle me. We're seeing people in full on, they're dressed for winter. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. They're full on winter gear, the puffy vest.
Well, I want to tell folks, calm down. You're not at like Breckenridge. You're not in Vail.
Toboggans.
Just because you come to the mountains, that does not make it a wintry day. That you need to be wearing the puffy vest, the beanie, the snow boots.
I know they're hot.
They have to be.
They can't not be.
One day you saw a lady fully decked out in ski gear.
Yeah.
There was no snow anywhere in sight. The ski resort, I don't even think was open in town.
The snow line has really moved a good 150 miles north of us. We've had, one dusting this year?
Yeah.
And, the higher elevations have kept some here and there. But I'm just like, dude, you got
She had on the goggles.
full-on ski gear, and there's not snow within, 200 miles, 300 miles.
Maybe she was going sledding in her mind down the
gosh.
street. I'm not sure.
Anyway, it's funny.
Yeah, we had a little chuckle. And then Dylan, he always wants to argue with me about songs. And I'm like a song library. And I was trying to explain to Dylan that there was an 80s song. You don't have to take your clothes off to have a good time.
Right.
He didn't believe me. I played the song for him, and I think he still doesn't believe it was an actual popular song.
Well, no, honey, I don't think in the time that you told me about the song that you produced, arranged and produced and cut the song.
That's what you act like.
And
I'll have you know, Jermaine Stewart was a legit artist.
You don't
back in the
have to take your clothes off to have a good time.
It's a little earworm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in there now.
You get it stuck in your head, and that shit won't go away.
It's going on my playlist.
It's good. It's like a dancey song.
So do you have anything to start with, or do you want to get directly into this incredibly wild tale?
No, let's get started, Dylan. Pennsylvania has not disappointed this month. I seriously believe every case I've found out of Pennsylvania has been like, whoa, melts my brain.
Yeah, it's like you just don't even believe they're true stories.
And this is another one. This is one of those cases that is going to leave you with some feelings. I'm not sure what those are going to be.
Okay.
I had a strong reaction to this case.
Yeah,
And we
just
can discuss at the end what you think, Dylan.
the little bit I know about it, it's infuriating on many levels.
It's one of those cases, you hear the true crime cases, and they all matter and they're all important. But, someone recently said to me, hey, I appreciate the fact that you guys don't cover just the husband killed the wife story because there's like 1 billion of those.
Right.
And I'm like, no, we leave that to Dateline. We love you, Keith. But yeah, we like to cover different kinds of cases. And some of the cases we share, it's like, well, that was really tragic and sad. But others that we cover, they really make you have an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
Like this, last week's case, the mainline murders out of Pennsylvania. People were like, what the hell? This was nuts, the story. And I think this is another one that you're gonna be thinking about it for several days.
Right.
Are you ready, Dylan?
I already started.
You look fucking ready.
I already
Okay, you'll have to
started.
excuse me because I just got myself a delicious latte, and I will be drinking that throughout.
Whoa.
Well, it's still hot, so
Okay. You're actually going to finish this one.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna try to.
That's a big goal.
Wampum is a small town in western Pennsylvania. And when I say small, Dylan, I mean a population of around 557 residents.
That's tiny.
That's not even a town, bro. That's like a hole in the wall.
It's like a community.
Yeah, it really is. Well, it's located along the Beaver River in Lawrence County near Newcastle. The town is known as a destination for train enthusiasts.
Oh, so they got some cool old depots and such?
They do. On the cold morning of February 20th, 2009, a man named Chris Brown was running late for work at Steelite in Newcastle, a company known for manufacturing dinnerware and flatware. And I thought I would add that in because I know you just love to talk about manufacturing.
Yeah. That sounds like a really great place to work.
He loves the industry. Brown's pregnant fiance, Kinsey Hawk, asked him to stay behind, like stay home with me on this particular day. Kinsey was 8.5 months pregnant with their son. Obviously, they're going to have a baby boy. They already had named Christopher. So already got the name picked out. 8.5 months. So she is right there on the edge of labor and delivery.
Any day now.
Any day now. And I'm sure that's very stressful, leaving your 8.5 month pregnant girlfriend at home when she's asking you, can you please stay behind today?
Yeah, and there's a possibility in a manufacturing factory setting like that of him working long hours, odd shifts. So yeah, certainly that certainly would be unnerving, especially once they get up to the end of the pregnancy.
Kinsey was a stay-at-home mom and a hairdresser. She had 2 daughters from a previous relationship. She and Chris had known each other since they were teenagers and kind of reconnected, into adulthood, and they planned to be married soon. Kinsey was excited about the new baby and her relationship with Chris. She had been preparing for the baby's arrival, nesting, as they say. Kinsey had washed the baby's clothing, ready to crib for the unborn child, and had stockpiled diapers and all the other baby supplies that are needed. And I remember those days.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. But it's good to have it ready.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you can't prepare enough before the little one gets there because you go through that stuff so quickly.
You do.
Like people have these diaper parties or showers, and those have all this stuff, and you'll be like, the first time you have a kid, you're like, wow, this is so much stuff. I'm not, and then 2-3 months into it, there's no stuff left.
Those 6 gigantic boxes of Costco wipes.
Yeah.
Gone.
All gone.
Within a few weeks. Now, at that point, Kinsey and Chris were counting down to the due dates. Chris reconsidered staying home with her, but he opted to go ahead and get in the work hours. After all, a new baby is expensive, and between the two of them, they already had 3 kids. Chris had an 11-year-old son from a previous relationship, Jordan, a 5th grader, and he lived in the home with Chris and Kinsey. Kinsey's daughters were 7-year-old Janessa and 4-year-old Adeline. And along with Jordan, they all lived as a blended family in a big farmhouse. According to family and friends, Jordan and Kinsey got along really well. There weren't issues. blending the children into this relationship. Jordan liked Kinsey, and he had already begun calling her mom. Jordan told 2020, quote, "I was happy about the baby. I always wanted a little brother, and it was a boy. So that's what I was going to get."
So if you're from the outside looking in on this family, you have this blended family. They're preparing for this new life together. And it seems like everyone's getting along fine. And you have a new baby on the way. Some people, the anchor baby, our together baby or whatever, which seems, kind of be the nucleus of these types of families. And everybody can love the baby and enjoy each other's company, right?
Right. And I think when you begin a relationship and your kids are still young, you're bringing in a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 11-year-old. They're still kind of young and innocent enough to kind of fall into place. Now, I'm not saying it's always perfect, but I think a lot of times when you have older kids trying to blend a new relationship can be difficult.
Well, yeah, because you got your kids that you don't want.
Teenagers can be resentful and they remember mom and dad together and so it can end up being tricky.
Yeah, I would say the younger the children are, the easier. That would make that a bit easier because, the grumpy teenagers are hard to deal with anyway. And then you start changing all these big changes. That's probably going to be a tough situation.
At the time, Kinsey had been sleeping in a downstairs bedroom that was set to be Jordan's room after the baby was born. Jordan, who had an upstairs bedroom, had already moved his clothing into this downstairs room. It was a regular morning, Jordan said. He got ready for school after Janessa woke him up. According to Jordan, he went downstairs to get his clothes for the day because they're already in this downstairs bedroom. He went into the bathroom, got dressed, then sat down on the couch in the living room waiting. At some point, Kinsey told the children it was time to go catch the school bus or they would be late. Jordan and Janessa left the house around 8:15, exiting out of what they called like a back door of the house. The pair dashed down the driveway to catch the school bus. Around 9 a.m., 6 workers who were doing tree trimming around the property arrived. In 3 different trucks, the main truck was driven by the owner, Gary Cable, who entered the driveway first. The men parked their trucks between the house and a tree line by a wooded area next to the home. And it was kind of closer to the road. I mean, I know that's kind of confusing, but I was trying to give you a little view of the situation.
So it sounds like they're working next to their property and they're allowing them to access the trees they're working on through their property. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to get these trees. I believe it's for the care of this property where
Okay.
they live. But
Okay.
yeah.
So they're the customers and they're there to work on their trees.
Yes, absolutely, Dom.
Okay.
But just to try to give you an idea of there's a tree line, there's the house, there's the road. The men aren't parked right up next to the house. At the time, Gary Cable, he's the owner of this tree company, he said there was a light coating of snow, less than about 1/4 of an inch on the ground. Cable didn't see any tire marks in the driveway, but noticed the middle of the driveway was kind of humped up as if someone had already driven through it already. You know how snow will kind of hump up a little bit in the center where the tires kind of make it do its thing.
That's how tires work, yes.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
Well, sometimes I feel like I have to explain it to you. You just stare at me.
I'm well aware of what happens when you drive through snow.
Well, you just look at me like kind of blankly sometimes. And I'm not sure if you're just stupid or if that's like your brain just processing things and you just have a dumb look on your face.
That's my thinking look, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here. I'm
just
sitting
trying to
and
make
thinking.
sure you keep up. Gosh, this is a good latte.
We'll be sitting and looking, but right now I'm sitting and thinking.
Well, we know you need like a little under construction sign when you're doing that. It's hard work. The men began working. One crew member came to Cable to report seeing a screen door open wide at the house, and he thought it was weird.
Well, yeah.
It's cold. There's a little bit of snow on the ground.
You don't see anyone around, obviously, as far as the family members go, and the door's wide open. It would strike anyone as odd.
Cable told his employee that he'd keep an eye on it. About 10 minutes later, Cable noticed a little girl crying. He went to the porch to see what was going on, and this little girl was just kind of lingering in the doorway, crying. 4-year-old Adeline, as I mentioned, she's standing in the doorway, she's crying. The little girl asked Cable, if he, can you help me with my mommy? And he's like, what's going on? She tells him her mother is dead.
Oh my gosh.
Cable did not enter the house, but advised one of his workers to call 911 from a cell phone. Gary Suwanek went to the end of the driveway to flag down law enforcement when they arrived. Cable asked the little girl to get a blanket and return back to the door so he could try to calm her down. Because she's standing in this door, it's freezing. He's like, honey, go get a blanket and come back. He's kind of got her wrapped up, but he doesn't go into the house at all, which is really smart.
It is smart. He doesn't know exactly what's happening. He doesn't know if there's still some type of intruder or the person who's hurt someone, or maybe he's thinking about not, contaminating the crime scene.
Suwanek noted there were 2 sets of small footprints in the driveway. First responders on the scene thought Kinsey had suffered a medical emergency, like perhaps she was hemorrhaging. There was a decision not to move her or touch her to preserve the integrity of the scene. Yet when the coroner arrived and started taking photos, that's when investigators on the scene realized this was not a natural death. The coroner touched the body and alerted law enforcement there was a problem. They determined that Kinsey had been shot in the back of the head. CPR was attempted, but the woman had already expired.
Wow. So here we have this kind of strange scene. It started with the little girl in the door crying, and now they've quickly realized this isn't a medical emergency. This is criminal.
Yes.
Homicide.
Wampum was not a town with a lot of homicides, so this was highly unusual. One detective recalled in his 25 years of law enforcement, he couldn't remember another murder in the town.
Well, that's not uncommon in a small community like this. Because and if you do have one here and there over the years, it's typically some kind of domestic family situation. Very few, strangers and low crime, low violent crime, I'm sure. So, yeah, I'm sure everyone's like, whoa, what the hell's going on, including investigators.
Chris was working his job in the shipping department when he received a call from police asking him to come home immediately. When he arrived at the farmhouse, law enforcement conveyed the tragic news. Kinsey and his unborn child were deceased. Chris Brown was devastated and collapsed in the yard, sobbing at the news.
Well, yeah, he just lost his wife and child at the same time. I just don't know how you could deal with that.
While investigators were checking the scene, Kinsey's cell phone was ringing. When a state trooper answered, it was a nurse from Mohawk Elementary School calling to say that Jordan was in the office. He wasn't feeling well. The officer asked the nurse to, quote, babysit him until they could arrange for the boy to be picked up. Chris was taken to the state police barracks for questioning. Their officials swabbed his hands for gunpowder residue, but they came back clean. His alibi checked out. Chris had been at work during the time the murder would have taken place, clearing her fiancé as a suspect. Law enforcement next went to Mohawk Elementary School to speak to the children, who'd been the only witnesses in the time leading up to Kinsey's murder. An officer had tried talking to Adeline, but she was in such a state of shock, she just couldn't offer up much information. And she's 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would even probably feel bad about trying to even ask her questions,
Jordan was asleep in the nurse's office after complaining about a stomachache. So when police arrive, he's asleep. Janessa and Jordan were both interviewed. The children didn't express anything out of the ordinary that morning, but Jordan mentioned seeing a black pickup truck near the garage just before he had gone to school. Jordan had thought much of the truck, considering that maybe someone was there doing work. Because again, they had tree trimmers that he knew were going to be on the property, and they rented this farmhouse. So the farm's owner would often come to the property to take care of animals regularly, make repairs, and just do general farm work.
Okay, so they're renting a house on an active farm.
It is an active farm.
Okay.
During a search of the house, officers find all the doors unlocked, and the front door had blood on its frame. A blue blanket was found near the front door on the floor. It had a hole in it. Officers considered it might have been the result of a shotgun blast. However, when it was later tested for chemical residue, it was found to be nothing more than a cigarette burn. No blood or powder residue was on it.
And this blanket was near the front door?
It was near the front door.
Okay, and the front door was the one with the blood smear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kinsey had been found in bed. A television, which sat on a top of an armoire, was kind of located on the right side of the bed, and it was on. like she had been laying there watching TV. The doors to the armoire were closed. A trooper opened them to find a locked gun safe on the bottom shelf. Inside were 2 small handguns and some ammunition. On the top shelf was a work helmet along with 2 boxes of shotgun shells. One box was open and one was closed, like it hadn't been opened yet. The open box contained 16 unfired Federal Premium Brand 20-gauge shotgun shells. It wasn't until 10 p.m. that Chris, along with state troopers, informed Jordan that something bad had happened to his stepmother, Kinsey, and that she was in heaven. This child became visibly upset. He was crying. It took them a bit to get this boy to calm down. Like, he was very upset with this news.
And this must be one of the toughest parts of investigators' jobs, informing family members, let alone children of a really young age, that someone's been killed.
I don't know how they do it.
No, I don't know how they do it, and I know that's got to tear at their heart every single time that they have to do it.
Well, I know from my own experience, having worked in the morgue in decedent care, you are calling families after they've just been given the worst news of their life. Sometimes you call and the next of kin hasn't been informed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's really tough to talk to people. And some of these people know what's happened, but you're like one of the first people to talk to them after they've been given this terrible news. And it is hard to do. They're very upset. And I cannot imagine having to explain that to a child.
So, but he was visibly shaken when they broke the news to him about his stepmother.
Yeah, like near hysterical and crying. I mean, like I said, it took a while to get him to calm down. So once he does settle down a bit, the troopers described Jordan's behavior as low-key. Like, he wasn't fidgeting. He didn't act nervous. He was just upset, like sad. Which, yeah, I would expect so. This is when the boy asked about the black truck. The child claimed he saw the truck as he left for school. He said he reached into his pocket to see if he had some ice cream money for that day, dislodged a piece of fuzzy lint from his pocket, and he bent down to pick it up. And that's when he kind of noticed this truck. He, as he's like bending down, he picks up a little piece of lint out of his pocket and he says, "I see this truck." And he knew it was black and bigger than a relative's truck, which was a Chevy S10. So that was kind of his way of telling police it was a full-size pickup truck.
So a full-size black pickup truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the best little kid terms, yes. Jordan told police that he had some guns, including a 20-gauge shotgun, stating he'd shot it outside with his dad and had done so in the last month. He said he did not shoot a gun on the morning of Kinsey's murder. Now, after the day's events, Chris and Jordan were finally settling into sleep. It was around 3 a.m. They were staying at Jordan's grandmother's house this night when this loud knock came at the door. The police had a warrant to arrest this 11-year-old boy.
Okay, so you've had a day. This started in the morning, right after school, so 9 o'clock-ish. 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yep.
And so they've had the day to process the scene, try to get a handle on what they think happened.
Yes.
And now this
3 a.m.
This is the conclusion. At 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
They've returned to arrest the 11-year-old.
Yes.
Okay.
Jordan Brown, a child, was placed in the back of a police cruiser and taken to the barracks. He was in custody there for a bit before being moved to the county jail.
Now, I can imagine his father, Chris, who's lost his wife and his unborn child, devastated.
Well, it's his fiance, but yes.
Well, I'm sorry, his
it's
wife
essentially,
his wife-to-be and unborn child. And you've not processed that in less than 24 hours or worked through it, certainly. So he's all to hell. And now they've shown up in the middle of the night to arrest his 11-year-old son for the murder of his wife-to-be.
A fifth grader.
A fifth grader. So now I could only imagine what's going through his mind. Why are they doing this? Why do they think this? And I'm sure that he believes that they're wrong.
Well, they're like cuffing this little boy, putting him in the back of a police car, taking him to this barracks. This is very traumatic.
Right. That's more than likely not designed for children.
No.
Okay.
Jordan was scared and confused. This little boy had no idea what was happening. The boy was being taken by strangers, dragged around in the middle of the night while being handcuffed. Well, it didn't take long for the boy's mugshot to be released, and the press went wild, as you can imagine. The arrest of an 11-year-old boy for murder gained widespread attention. Jordan had been crying the whole night when the photo was taken. Jordan would later say he was terrified and didn't understand the accusations made against him. I mean, let's be honest, Dylan. What 11-year-old child would understand the brevity of the situation?
I know there's a freedom of information rules and all that here. This is public stuff, and the reason the press can so quickly get this mugshot. But does anyone not just exercise some just...
Well, this is a minor child.
I'm saying it's a minor child. For one, I'm surprised their mugshot would be obtained that quickly.
As well.
And does anyone in the press ever just pause and say, okay, this is a story for sure, we got to report on this?
But can we discuss the ethics?
Can we do it in a way that considers the fact that this is a minor child who is, just like any adult, innocent until proven guilty, and maybe we handle this with a little bit of care? But of course, that's not the way they're going to go with it.
Police said a turning point in the case had happened just hours before the arrest. Jordan and Janessa were interviewed again on the night of the murders. So if you remember, they were interviewed at the school, but then they were interviewed after that a few times. When Janessa was interviewed again, she gave police a different account of the morning's events. The 7-year-old girl said while she was waiting downstairs for Jordan so they could catch the bus, he was not with her yet. She heard a big boom, which sounded like a gun. Jordan denied touching his guns that morning, but when police searched the home, they found a collection of handguns, rifles, and rounds of ammunition, as I mentioned. A 20-gauge shotgun belonging to the 5th grader was also discovered, and this was described as a youth model.
Right. And I've seen these. I'm no gun guy, but I've seen these in various calibers. They're designed for children to be able to handle properly, and a lot of people will get their kids their first gun in whatever caliber. And start teaching them gun safety and about hunting.
I remember my brother had like one of these little...
Yeah, I've seen like the little cricket 22 rifles, things like that.
My brother had something like that as a child.
Right.
It's not unusual, especially in rural areas, for young people to grow up shooting firearms. Many families hunt with parents and kids both armed. A lot of young boys might even have a small shotgun or rifle. The youth model gun, according to investigators, smelled like it had been fired recently. Yet investigators never checked the child's hands for gunpowder residue. The officers also noted they were not experts and really could not say when the gun had been fired.
Okay, so for them, the follow-up interview of the 7-year-old girl,
yes,
Jordan's sister, that's when... They're claiming this is what made them think,
this is a soon-to-be stepsister.
Okay.
But essentially,
I'm sorry.
For all intents and purposes.
So her second or third interview, she's gave them a different story. But see, that's what strikes me as odd, is if you do, and this could happen, it's not like there's not just recently a 6-year-old shot his teacher, right? I mean, it's not like a kid can't fire a gun and kill someone or hurt someone, but you don't swab... You don't protect his hands or check his hands for gunpowder residue. I think that maybe is a mistake on their part.
Absolutely. Well, the gun was sent for forensic examination. The following day, after Jordan's arrest, police found a 20-gauge shotgun shell casing next to the driveway after the murder. Now, at first, investigators were out there poking around, and they found a very rusty shell. They found a second shell some feet away, which was located at the base of a wire fence. It was found underneath leaves, which were frozen by ice and snow. It was not weathered and was described as being pristine.
Under ice and snow and leaves?
Yes.
Okay.
A third spent shell was also found near the driveway, but it was again described as rusty.
Okay.
So clearly, these are people who've shot firearms and there are shells on the property.
Right. Finding a bullet casing or shotgun shells, no big surprise in an area like this.
It was also kind of ground into the driveway as if it had been there for some time. Troopers took photos, then removed all the shells they could find as evidence. So we got a couple of shells here. They could not say how long any of the shells had been in the driveway. They didn't know if they'd been there 10 years, 10 minutes, 10 days. No idea.
Well, I mean, if it's under ice and snow and leaves, and in my mind, and if you just visibly see it laying on top of all this stuff, even with the dusting of snow, that would, I can't tell you a definitive time it's been there, but I would say, hey, that one was just thrown down, and that one's been there for.
But if you're finding this new one that looks pristine, but it's under leaves,
yes,
with ice and snow on top of it, that would indicate it had at least been there for some days, right?
In my mind,
most?
it does.
Yeah.
In my mind, if I can't just visibly see it and it's laying on top of all this, then obviously it's been here more than today.
Police had a theory. They had a motive, Dylan. You know what that motive was?
I'm going to guess he's 11. He's the eldest son of his father, 11 years old, that he hates his stepmother and he's jealous of the new baby.
That's exactly what police
Shit.
theorize. Jealousy. Investigators believe the 11-year-old was jealous of the impending birth of a new baby.
Okay, but he's not an only child. He already has a little sister.
Well, he doesn't. He has these two soon-to-be stepsisters.
Oh, so he is an only child.
He is an only child.
Okay, he is an only child, and he's going to have two stepsisters and a new baby brother. Okay, all right. So he is an only child. All right.
How could this be? Jordan was a child who still believed in Santa Claus, but the media started calling him America's Little Monster, which was a harsh name for a boy who had never been in trouble and exhibited no behavioral problems. Hadn't been in trouble at school.
So they don't, yeah, okay, there's long
yeah.
stories of behavioral issues or him having
He's not
anger
a problem
issues.
child at all.
Okay.
Immediately, Chris Brown went on the defensive. Brown pointed to the fact that Kinsey had an ex-boyfriend of 6 years, a guy named Adam Harvey. Kinsey and Adam had a tumultuous relationship. Kinsey and her family had a restraining order against Harvey, who had threatened to kill her on more than one occasion.
What?
Yet Adam Harvey denied those claims to police.
But surely investigators can see that there is this ex, there is court documents of some sort, there is a restraining order. You can easily pull these things, correct?
Do you hear a dog snoring?
Yeah.
If you hear something snoring in the background, it's Rufus.
Yeah, he's plumb wore out. He's had a big day today.
Yeah, he had a walk. Okay. Adam Harvey, get this, Dylan, drove a black truck, much like the one Jordan told police he'd seen near the garage that morning.
Okay, so I got to imagine at this point, investigators are like, wait, hold on a second. This could be, we got to take a look at this guy because this kind of adds up as well. All right.
Police pulled him over driving the truck and determined, in their opinion, there was no way he could have driven 24 miles round trip to Kinsey's farmhouse and back without disturbing the snow that was left on the hood of his truck.
Oh, so this is some new forensics technique that I've never heard of. So they're saying that
it's called, I reckon that probably didn't happen, so
they're saying that he couldn't have drove the distance from his house to Kinsey's house and away because there's snow on the hood of his truck.
Yeah. So I reckon that just means it's true. He didn't do it.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
I've driven vehicles with snow on the hood around for freaking 2 or 3 days before it comes off.
Well, if you're in really cold temperatures,
Yeah.
a lot of times that snow is frozen to the hood of your vehicle.
Yeah, and it totally depends on...
And you might get a little dusting blow off, but
Yeah.
like the majority of it's fucking frozen to the hood.
Right. Or you might get a little bit of melt around the edges, and of course it's going to depend on the vehicle, size engine, the kind of heat produced under the hood. But, all right.
Adam Harvey also told investigators he had no idea where Kinsey was living at the time. According to police, Adam Harvey's hands were tested for gunpowder residue, but there was none. Kinsey and Adam Harvey had been arguing over money most recently. Kinsey had wanted child support for 4-year-old Adeline, but he'd refused to pay the money, stating he first wanted proof the child belonged to him. According to Adam, he had recently learned that the child he thought was his daughter was in fact not his biological child at all.
And I think he has every right to have that proven to him. If he has any doubts in some, I know some guys do this to be a fucking dick. And you never hear about women doing this because the baby comes out of their body, right?
No, I always demand a maternity test.
But
I'm like, I do not believe this child I'm carrying belongs to me. I demand a maternity test. I want to know how it got here.
yeah, I want to know what's happening. So yeah, I don't think that automatic. All I'm saying is I don't think that automatically makes him a dick for asking for a paternity test when child support is at issue.
I do kind of think it makes someone a dick when they tell a person this child belongs to you and then it doesn't.
Well, see, yeah. I mean, there's that. That is the woman's part, is if you tell someone that and it doesn't. Now, if there's a chance at all, you should just be honest about it.
I agree.
You should be honest in the very beginning.
I don't think it's okay to just play it off like, no, this is your baby, when you know good and damn well that you slept with multiple people in a small window of time.
Now, I also know a lot of guys, or some guys, do this just to be a fucking dick, and they know damn well it's their kid. But what's the big deal? Let's get a paternity test. No big deal. Let's do it. And if it is your child, and obviously you should help support that child financially.
During the interview, Adam Harvey was crying. One officer said he suspected Adam Harvey was still in love with Kinsey. He cooperated during the investigation, agreeing to take a polygraph test. And Adam had an alibi too. He had been in his parents' home sleeping at the time of the murder. Within a day, police cleared him as a suspect. But we're going to talk some more about Adam in a minute.
So one of the cops is like, well, I think he still loves her. That doesn't help clear you. For me, that means that you still have strong feelings for this woman.
How many victims of domestic violence have spouses that beat the shit out of them and then tell them, I love you the next day, and buy them roses, or murder their spouse and then cry and go to the funeral and act like they didn't do it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it means you still have strong feelings for this woman who is pregnant and about to marry this other man. I mean, some people call that motive.
Well, my whole thing is when it comes to police work, you can't rely on your opinion or your gut feeling. Like, we need to have some fucking facts to back up what you're saying. I mean, anytime you're like, well, I just feel it in my gut. That's not good police work.
Well, I think people can sense the way that this story is going. So here we are. Investigators rule him out rather quickly, it seems like. And they think that the 11-year-old, Jordan, is the perpetrator. I mean, that seems to be obvious at this point.
One investigator pointed to the fact that it was such a small window of time. Adam would have found out where Kinsey lived. He would have needed to know the doors were unlocked. Went inside, happened to find a 20-gauge shotgun in the house after everybody leaves. He got into the home before the snow fell, leaving no tracks, and got by 3 tree trimmers. Police just felt like it was unlikely. But was it impossible? A lot of folks pointed to the fact that stranger things have happened.
Well, I mean, that's the first thing they've said that does actually give me some pause as far as the window of opportunity.
However, police found no fingerprints or DNA evidence during their investigation. Had a complete stranger broken into the home and killed Kinsey? Or had Jordan, an 11-year-old boy, murdered Kinsey in cold blood, then went to school without missing a beat, having managed to clean up the crime scene and leave behind no fingerprints, no evidence, no DNA, nothing.
And be bop off to school like nothing had happened. Not emotional, not all to hell, but go to school.
In order to get to the school bus on time, Jordan would have only 2 minutes to murder Kinsey, clean the bullets and the debris off himself, clean the gun, then leave the house.
Okay. That seems impossible.
Janessa was interviewed 4 different times by police. By the 4th interview, police began recording, and she changed her story during this 4th interview.
So 3 previous interviews with a 7-year-old minor
Yes.
were not recorded.
No.
Okay. Why wouldn't you record every interview, no matter the age of the person, especially if they're 7?
Now, during the first interview, Janessa said nothing out of the ordinary happened that morning. But by the last interview, the 4th interview, she claimed Jordan was moving his guns around before school. And she heard this boom
We
that
should
she
have.
had not mentioned before.
Di-
And it was only during this interview they recorded what she's saying.
That blows my mind. We should have the recordings of the other 3 interviews, for one, to make sure. And does she have a custodian? Does she have anybody with her when the investigators are talking to her, or are they talking to the 7-year-old by themselves? We should have the other 3 interviews to cover the cops' ass too, so no one can say that you. I mean, it'd be very, very easy with a 7-year-old to lead them in the questioning. Now, if I ask you a question, something to the degree, did you hear any loud noises like a gun going off? And I ask you that multiple times in a certain way, it's not that hard to believe that a 7-year-old might eventually, in their head, say something like, yes, or there was, or now that I think about it, or if you ask me like that. I mean, this is how coerced confessions develop.
We know adults can fall prey to can
Adults-
fall victim to this kind of line of questioning.
Yes.
So a 7-year-old child
Yes.
that's just lived through a traumatic event, like learning that their mother has been murdered.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have been recording every minute that I talked to her just because I'm talking to a 7-year-old. I mean, honestly.
Yet police called Jordan unreliable because they said he changed his story about seeing a black truck, because it evolved into he saw a black truck to he later said he thought he saw a man inside the truck kind of wearing a hat and crouching down behind the wheel. So clearly one child with a changed story is more believable than another child with a changed story, because they're believing Janessa's changed story. But when Jordan gives a different version that he thought he saw a man in the truck, oh, he's a liar. See, his story's changed.
But her story went from everything was fine, nothing at all strange happened, it was a normal morning, to I've heard a loud boom, I heard Jordan upstairs moving guns around. I mean, that's a big change. That's a little bigger change than the evolution of Jordan.
I saw a black truck.
But now that I think about it,
you know what? I think there
might have
was a
saw a
man.
guy in it.
There was like a man in the truck wearing a hat.
Yeah, I mean, he took in comparison. If he said, "I saw a black truck," but now he's like, "I saw a white sedan," that would be like a huge change. Her story's changed, and I'm definitely not saying anything about the 7-year-old, poor thing, going through this. I could imagine.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the kids. I'm talking about these adults
That's what I'm saying.
that are like, well, we'll believe this kid, but not that one. And it's like, are you stupid? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it seems to me like they have tunnel vision on this, but maybe I'm wrong.
Police insisted that Jordan shot his future stepmother, walked out the door, dropped this pristine shell casing on the ground, then went and hopped on the school bus with Janessa. The day of his stepmother's murder would be the last time Jordan was home for years. The 11-year-old was going to be charged as an adult in this crime.
So he dropped that shell casing under the leaves and ice and snow.
Yeah,
He got it under the leaves and ice and snow by just dropping it on the ground.
apparently.
Okay,
That's what happened.
That makes total sense.
The school bus driver recalled seeing Jordan and Janessa walking down the driveway, with Jordan about 10 feet ahead of the younger girl. When the pair saw the bus pull up, they ran the remaining quarter of the way down the driveway to catch the bus. At no time did the bus driver observe Jordan tossing anything from his pocket, and said the children sat in their assigned bus seats without incident. At no time during the ride did Jordan seem upset, distracted, or behave differently than usual. The bus driver said he acted just like the way he always did.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Now, the farmhouse, Dylan, we need to talk about this. It had 4 entrances. The children used the door exiting from a laundry room on the right side of the home, which was opposite of the driveway. In order to get to the driveway, a person would need to immediately exit out this laundry room, turn left, which would be facing the garage behind the house. Then they would need to go down a flight of stairs, turn left again to walk between the area that's kind of like the parking area that was between the house and the garage. Does that make sense? Can
Yes.
you kind of picture it? So according to Chris Brown, the family never used the front door of the home.
And that's not strange. I think every household has that, entrance that you use 98% of the time.
Yeah, we have a side door.
Yeah. And it's typically
use.
a back door, a side door, mud room, utility room where the family come, it's typically
garage
right beside your garage
door,
or your
entryway,
driveway.
yeah.
Yeah. Nobody, very seldom do people use the front door of their home.
Kenzie had been found lying on her left side, like she was laying on the left side so she could watch that TV. Because if you remember, it was like on the right side of the bed on top of an armoire. Now, according to the forensic pathologist, the gun was held closely to Kenzie's neck, at least within 2 inches of her neck.
So almost point blank range.
Yes. The gun barrel had been in close contact with the victim's skin.
Right.
For the next 3 years, Jordan Brown was housed at the Edmund L. Thomas Adolescent Center in Erie County, Pennsylvania, nearly 115 miles away from Chris Brown's home. Every day, Brown drove 230 miles round trip to visit his son. Jordan says the daily visits from his dad kept his head straight. Yet the daily 4-hour journey wreaked havoc on Chris Brown's finances. He lost his job. Any money he had coming in went to fill the gas tank to make the drive to see his son and back. And any extra money he had went to buy Jordan things that he needed. Chris brought his son books and a dictionary so he could look up words he didn't know. He tried to spend time tutoring his son to make sure that he was, getting the right kind of education. Chris admits after Jordan's arrest, his grief took a back seat. He never had time to properly mourn the loss of his fiancée and unborn child, only focusing on what had happened to his only son. Every visit, Chris would ask his son about the day Kenzie was murdered and if Jordan had been responsible. Yet the boy never wavered in his accounting of the day and denied having any part of it. Quote, "Accidents happen, buddy. If something happened, you can tell me. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm your dad. I'm never going to not be your dad," Chris would say. But Jordan maintained he did not shoot Kenzie from day one.
He did not shoot her. He did nothing to harm his stepmother. And as far as he saw a black truck there. That's all he knows.
Yes.
Okay.
Kenzie's mother, Debbie, sees it differently. She told 2020 in an interview that Jordan was a murderer. She said, quote, "And his father needs to get in the mirror every morning and look in that mirror and say, quote, 'I'm the father of a murderer.'"
Okay.
Chris, who rarely went out after the murder, was at a bar with friends one night when one of Kenzie's ex-boyfriends tapped him on the shoulder, according to a police report. He had a handgun and began threatening Chris Brown. Police were called, but told Brown didn't want to press charges because he didn't think it would help his son's case. So Kenzie dated a man who threatened to kill her, and she needed a protective order. This guy, Adam Harvey, right? Then this other guy, another ex-boyfriend, who carries handguns and threatens people in public. I mean, it seems like Kenzie had more associations with violent people than police realized or noted.
Possibly that she maybe dated a certain type of guy at a certain point in her life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Dylan, but I don't know too many of my ex-boyfriends who carry around guns and threaten people in bars.
No.
I'm just saying.
And for me, it's weird because Chris didn't do anything to harm her. And if his 11-year-old son did shoot her, that would be horrible. That still wouldn't be his fault. So I don't know why in the world her family or friends or anyone would be mad at Chris. And that's his son. So even if it's true and it's hard for him to process, I might not agree with him, but I would understand why he can't come to grips with the fact that his 11-year-old son is a murderer, right? I wouldn't be trying to fight him in a fucking bar.
But I think even bigger is just to point out that it seems like there were other people that had violent intentions or
tendencies
could have been looked at as a suspect.
Right. Maybe the guy that she has a restraining order for and active custody issues with over financial, or over money. Wow, I sound so smart. You know, yeah, she has active issues with this back and forth. They'd already just recently been arguing about money, child support, and paternity, and all that.
2 years after Jordan's arrest, a judge determined the case would be moved from an adult court to a juvenile court, mostly because Jordan would not admit involvement in the crime. Instead of facing life in prison, he would be released far earlier. Yet it would take another 8 months before Jordan went to trial for double homicide. A new prosecutor had taken over the case at that point, so it was kind of causing more delay in this. One of the issues became whether Brown's trial should be open to the public. The judge decided it would not be open to the public. The hearing lasted 3 days, in which testimony and legal arguments were presented. Statements were made by Kenzie's daughter, Janessa, but they were not presented at trial, and the girl was not asked to testify. A judge ruled Jordan Brown was responsible for first-degree murder in the death of 26-year-old Kenzie. 15-year-old Jordan was declared a delinquent, which meant guilty in juvenile court. They don't really say guilty or not guilty. They will just deem a child a delinquent.
So this is a judge making this decision, not a jury trial.
Right.
Okay.
Under Pennsylvania law, a juvenile offender can't be held past their 21st birthday. Brown could be held until August of 2018 when he turned 21. During his incarceration, Jordan taught himself to play guitar and basketball. 2 months after Jordan's sentence was handed down, his attorneys appealed it. It would take another 3.5 years before his appeal was heard by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
What the hell, dude?
His lawyers argued police never were able to prove that Jordan's shotgun was the murder weapon. A particle of gunpowder residue had been on a pair of shirt and pants that he had been wearing, but they concluded that it could have been transferred from his winter coat. So here's the thing, Dylan. Jordan had worn this winter coat on a recent turkey shoot with his dad before the murder, like the weekend before. The officers who said they smelled Jordan's gun and they thought it had been fired recently, admitted they had no expert training to know when this gun had been fired.
Well, so you're going to smell gunpowder, and that could have been fired weeks ago if it wasn't cleaned afterwards. I'm going to guess, I'm not a gun guy, that it's going to smell like gunpowder until you clean it, right?
The prosecution's forensic analyst had stated on stand during this hearing that the particles, because it was just a very minute transfer of particles on this boy's outfit.
So he definitely wasn't wearing a winter coat when he shot a shotgun.
No.
There would be a huge transfer of that.
Right. That this little bit of particle could have transferred onto the boy's clothing from this winter coat. An expert also stated that a gun fired inside would have landed particles differently than one shot outside because of wind and airflow. So it would have been more likely that this particle would have had, they would have made more impact on his clothing.
Right.
There would have been more deposits of this gun shot residue. But the tiny amount of particle residue was not consistent with someone who had shot a gun indoors at such close range.
Right. And again, you're in this rural setting. He could have friends on the bus who went shooting yesterday with their dad or grandpa or whatever. I mean, the gunpowder's all over the place in this community. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? I mean, it truly is. A lot of people shoot guns around there.
The discovery of the shotgun shells on the property was of no significance, argued Jordan's attorneys. The property was littered with shell casings, and the family admitted readily to routinely shooting all over the farmland. There was also no blood or tissue found on the gun or the boy's clothing that day. There was no latent prints or DNA on the shell casings.
What evidence are we convicting him on?
It's just the feeling I got.
No, I seriously
I'm a good
don't
policeman.
get it.
I got good feelings.
I seriously do not get it at all. Because the one issue we got is a shotgun instead of a round. I think I'm using the proper terms. The ballistics, I'm going to guess, you can't take a round or anything pulled out of the victim and connect it straight back to the shotgun with ballistics. It doesn't work like that.
Look, Dylan, there are
shot?
facts and then there are alternative facts.
Now-
Didn't we learn anything?
They can, I've seen, take the shot from the victim and do like a chemical analysis of that shot. And then they could take ammo from the house and see if it has the same chemical analysis. And if I'm not mistaken, I've seen that used before to prove in a shotgun murder case that indeed you still can't say that shotgun did it, but you can say, hey, it was the same shot on the chemical
Well,
level.
hold up there for a minute, Sherlock. You're getting ahead of me.
Holy shit, bro. Did I just solve this case?
Just
Damn, my brain is actually working
look,
today.
okay? Jump back in your pants. You're very excited right now.
Okay, that was yeah.
Okay, so of 27 pieces of pellets and wadding, as they call it,
Yeah. Johnny Wad.
pulled from Kenzie's skull, because I'm no like gun expert. I know just enough, but not a whole lot.
I think we only know what we see in forensic stories. We don't know.
But there's like, I guess in shotgun, there's like this wadding that can come out.
Well, yeah, I think it's
Right.
before the shot. It's what keeps the shot in place.
Right. So they were able to pull 27 pieces of pellets and wadding from Kenzie's skull. There could be no exact match on whether it was the same ammunition found in the house, only that it appeared to be smooth, which made it possibly the same.
Okay.
Others wanted to know why a shotgun hadn't blown off Kenzie's head. Police only learned that she'd been shot once they moved her body, and the entry wound was very small. So a 20 gauge shell contains less than 200 pellets, yet only 27 were found in Kenzie's skull.
Wow.
None.
But in her head, this is bad thing to talk about. But her head was intact, correct?
Yeah.
They simply found the entry wound.
Yes.
Once they started examining the body.
Yes.
Where's the other 80% of the shot or whatever? I don't do math.
None were found on the bed, the floor, the wall, etc. So, if that was the type of ammunition used, there was no accounting for nearly 160 missing pellets from this casing.
So the only answer is that it wasn't the same shot. It wasn't the same.
Suggests a 20 gauge shell was not used at all. Therefore, it would have been a different gun and a different weapon altogether.
Okay. I mean,
Okay. How could a shotgun, which was said to be fired at close range, have no deposits of blood, tissue, or DNA?
that right there's a smoking gun in the defenses. I mean, come on. I only honestly think I don't think that this was I don't know the right word, the proper word, but the judge determined this guilt of this minor, not a jury, correct?
Yes.
And I think that maybe that's the practice of minor court. I don't know that they ever use juries. I'm not sure. But I don't think a jury would have been convinced with this evidence that the state's presenting. Because there's seriously, not only is there not a bunch of evidence, there's evidence against it being his gun, his type of shell, him shooting it close range. I mean, there's all these things that say it's not him. He didn't do it. That's more prominent than evidence to the contrary.
Can I finish?
Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh.
Holy shit.
You're just not letting me get the whole thing out.
No, it's
before
just
we start
I
with
don't
all this.
understand. Okay.
And the boy's school clothing had no traces of blood or DNA evidence from Kenzie. A pathologist testified at the close distance, Kenzie, like her person, would have had blowback, though he could not conclusively say if that matter would have gotten on the gun or the shooter.
But it'd be on one or the other, possibly on both.
I mean,
Wouldn't you think?
that seems to be common sense for me.
Well, yeah, because you got these exhaust gases, especially even more prominent, I think, in a shotgun shell that come and going to escape the barrel whenever you shoot it. And that's where sometimes they can tell about the close contact, how close the gun was, because it can actually kind of puff up under the skin, these exhaust gases, when the shell's shot. I just don't see how in the world at that close range that it's not just all over the place. And honestly, I don't understand how you could be shot close range with any shotgun shell and not have more damage.
Forensic examination of the shotgun itself revealed no latent fingerprints on the weapon. No blood or DNA was detected on the gun's parts or on the barrel, which they believed had been within 2 inches of the back of Kenzie's neck.
Okay.
And they thought, the forensic person who testified thought that it had been like it had touched her, like it had been at close range, like it had touched her neck.
Right.
Chris Brown testified that they often shot guns on the property near where the work crew had parked. Only a week before the murder, Chris and Jordan had participated in a turkey shoot, as I mentioned, which Chris said he had loaded and unloaded his son's gun each time the boy fired.
And I'm going to say this for the people who don't know, because I was many years old before I realized this. They don't actually shoot turkeys at a turkey shoot.
No, they don't.
It's a target.
Yeah.
It's just called a turkey shoot.
Exactly.
I bet some people's out there like, why are they shooting all the damn turkeys, man?
So Chris is trying to make a point that when we went to this turkey shoot, I loaded and unloaded my son's gun each time he fired. He had not let the boy load and unload his own gun. So he was like, I don't even think Jordan knows how to do that properly or fully.
Operate the firearm by himself.
Yeah.
Because he's just handing him a loaded gun.
Yes.
Okay.
And telling him shoot.
And then he hands it back to Dad, and Dad breaks it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
See, if you handed me a gun, it would take me a minute to figure it out. I wouldn't just know.
You'd be waving it around.
How to operate
You'd be
it.
trying to spin it around like you were Billy the Kid
No.
and shoot yourself in the ass or something.
No, I have really good gun safety.
I'm sure
Because
you
guns
do.
scare me.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Damn. Don't hand Heather a gun, apparently, because she has some improper things that she's
Yeah, I'm
done.
like, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, pew, 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 pew. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I get really excited. I think I'm Bruce Willis in Die Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a badass.
He had worn this winter coat at the shoot, which was inside an indoor metal garage type of building. Chris testified that he had chosen to leave the family's phone number unlisted due to the threatening phone calls made by Adam Harvey. Before the murder, Kenzie had received between 12 and 14 threatening phone calls from Adam. There had been an incident in which Harvey had gotten into an altercation with Kenzie's parents at a nightclub on February 19th of 2009, when he was in this bar picking up an order of wings.
So even with the unlisted number, she had still received threatening phone calls.
Yeah,
from
and
him.
I think these had come through on her cell phone, but their home number was unlisted.
Okay.
So this was the night before she's murdered. He sees her parents in a bar. They have a verbal altercation when he goes in to pick up wings.
I want some wings now.
And now he gets removed. They make him leave the bar.
So it's a big scene.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
Adam had been thrown out by security. Now, he testified that this had happened, but denied making any threats or harassing phone calls. He also denied feeling angry that Adeline was not his biological daughter. At the time, Adam Harvey was living in his parents' basement with a private entrance. He claims after the incident at the bar, he returned home and stayed there all night until 9 a.m. the next morning. Adam said he had no idea where Kenzie lived, but had told troopers people had informed him that she had moved somewhere near Wampum. Now, in a town of 500 people, I would say it's probably not that, even if it's a rural area, it's probably not that difficult to figure out where somebody lives. And it's probably not too hard if you're in a town of 500, if you really wanted to follow somebody and figure out where they live, you could probably do that, right?
Probably.
So I'm not buying that he just had no idea where she lived.
So he actually had a full-on argument in public with her parents the night before the murder.
Yep.
And to the degree that he was removed from the business by security.
Bingo.
And they're not taking a look at, they didn't take a harder look at this guy.
And his alibi is, I'm at home with my parents.
That has a private entrance.
But he has a private
separate
entrance where he could come and go and they would never know if he'd left the house or not.
Okay.
In 2006 and again in 2008, Kenzie had filed for protective orders. In the 2006 order, she accused Adam of threatening to kill her and saying he knew people who would kill her. Others have pointed to Adam's family. His father was commandant of the Marine Corps League in Newcastle, with possible connections to law enforcement, especially those who might have served in the military. According to records, Charles and his sons, including Adam, had a long history of drinking, like DUI charges. They had multiple of those. It was rumored some of Charles' drinking buddies were none other than the boys in blue.
Really?
In another incident, Kinsey described being assaulted by Adam and that his brother became involved, threatening to kill her, but he left when police arrived.
Who's all these dudes that want to threaten to kill a woman, dude? I've never, even in my maddest, and I've not been perfect in my life, I've never ever told a woman I'm gonna fucking kill you. I've never uttered those words.
Well, you're a good man, Dylan.
I just don't get it. Now, I'm not saying I've never told that to anyone, but I've never told that to a woman.
I've had a man tell me that before.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that how they tried to pick you up at the bar?
Yeah.
Like, can I get your number? I'll fucking kill you.
No, I was with a fucking
abuser. Abusive piece of shit.
I was with an abusive piece of shit.
Yeah, and if he's out there and he hears this, holla at me, bitch.
During the appeal, Jordan's attorneys argued the state had not produced sufficient evidence to show guilt, beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence gathered against the child was circumstantial, and there was no physical evidence tying him to this murder or murders. In the years following, the boy had consistently told the same story without wavering from what he said was the truth.
I'm still sitting over thinking about the number of pellets in the shot that would have been available to Jordan if he did in fact get his gun, his 20 gauge gun, youth gun, and shoot his stepmom. Where are those missing pellets? I can't get past that.
Well,
they don't.
Where's this idea that because Adam Harvey didn't have gunshot residue on his hands that he couldn't have worn gloves and shot this woman?
And we don't know if Jordan had gunshot residue on his hands because we didn't check that, but we're sure he did it. We check. I don't get this.
Well, and it seems to me, so Adam's brother has threatened to kill this woman. He's told her multiple times, I know people who will kill you. So maybe he didn't, but he could have been involved.
Right. He could have had someone do it.
It was noted there were also problems with the key findings of fact in the juvenile hearing. Namely, that it was stated there were no other footprints or tire tracks near the home, which was untrue because 6 men had been working in the area on the day of the murder. Jordan had largely been arrested on the statement provided by 7-year-old Janessa. The prosecution abandoned her statement to pursue forensic evidence in a case which had very little.
Oh, it's just not there.
So we're relying on a witness statement, but we're not using that witness in court. Instead, now we're using forensic evidence, and there's none.
And the witness statement we were using in the first place is the 3rd or 4th interview, the only one recorded. The
with
other
a 7-year-old child who's changed her story.
And the other 3 were not recorded. We don't even know if she truly changed her story, even though they said she changed her story, because we don't have the recordings of the previous interrogations. I don't know if they write out reports or transcripts or what, but I just don't understand. It just doesn't add up for me.
Now, according to Adeline, who at age 13 spoke to 2020, she remembered waking up to a loud sound, probably a gunshot. Then her mom's cell phone was ringing, so the child answered it. When the person asked for Kinsey, Adeline went into her mother's room and tried giving her the phone. That's when she realized something was wrong with her mom.
Now, this was the 4-year-old.
This is the 4-year-old. It was after this that Adeline went outside to talk to these tree trimmers. Many point to Adeline's story, suggesting this happened long after Jordan and Janessa had gotten on the school bus. Jordan's lawyers say the timeline means the boy wasn't at home when Kinsey was killed, but investigators now say they don't find the child's recounting of the story credible at all.
Which child's recounting?
Well, they don't think that Adeline's story is credible because she was 4 when it happened.
Okay. Who called her cell phone?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was the school because remember the school
because Jordan
had like a tummy ache and wasn't feeling well.
Now, some people may say once he got to school, he started processing what he had done and couldn't really deal with it, and then said he had a tummy ache, And that was what, some people could say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
y'all.
it was starting to get to him what he actually did.
At 18, Jordan Brown was finally released. In July of 2018, the Supreme Court sided with him, finding the state of Pennsylvania did not have enough evidence to prove the child's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. In a rare move, Jordan's conviction was overturned. While this didn't clear Jordan, he cannot be retried for the murder. Chris Brown has been vocal against the troopers who arrested his son, saying, "Shame on you," and pointing to the fact that an 11-year-old had his childhood ripped away. Chris has not forgotten Kinsey or his unborn child. He says he still loves them and thinks about them every day. Others are still confident that Jordan Brown committed the murders, including troopers who worked the case. One of the Pennsylvania troopers who's now retired, his name is Bobby McGraw.
Why you say that? Like Bobby's supposed to work all his life? He can't be retired?
Well, I'm just saying he's now retired.
You just had some...
Well, I'm just saying he's now retired, Dylan. He's no
kidding.
longer a trooper. But he told news reporters, quote, "We did not get this wrong."
Yeah. Yeah, you get that a lot of time with investigators. Even when there's a lot of, evidence or, it pretty much looks like they got it wrong,
Janessa and Adeline were raised by Kinsey's parents, who see this all as a miscarriage of justice. They firmly believe Jordan is guilty despite a lack of evidence. Cases where kids murder parents are rare. There are about 30 reported a year in the United States. According to criminologist Kathleen Hyde, who wrote Kids Who Kill, they typically fit a specific type. These are kids who kill their parents after being abused. They are kids who see their parents as controlling and as an obstacle to be removed from what they want, or they are kids who are mentally ill. No psychological evaluations have proven that Jordan fits into any of those three categories.
So if he did do it, he is...
A psychopath. One of the best of the best.
Right.
Totally manipulative and convincing and the most conniving.
So he's going to be more conniving.
Criminally sophisticated children of all time. Because he knew how to clean this gun and wipe off the fingerprints and maybe not get any of the blood or anything on his clothes. Just a sophisticated criminal at age 11 in the few minutes that he had between getting dressed and catching the bus.
Also, the ability to hide his psychopathy from many, many different professionals.
It's amazing.
In an institutional setting.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually better and more clever than all the notorious serial killers we've ever heard. They were all proven to have evidence of personality disorders. I mean, just you can name it all. But not Jordan.
No.
Jordan can hide it.
He is that good.
Wow, he's like a little Iceman.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Iceman Jr.
Now, using a different name, Jordan Brown has been trying to get his life back. He attended college in Ohio studying computer science. Jordan has filed a lawsuit against Pennsylvania authorities for wrongful imprisonment. And I couldn't find any details about whether there has been a settlement or a ruling in that lawsuit. But it seems like he's trying as best as he can to get on with his life.
So, what, a good 7+ years probably when it was all said and done that he was in either being held for trial.
He was 7 years of his life.
Or, okay.
I mean, his entire adolescence.
Yes.
Teenage years gone
wow.
forever.
And finally, the only reason they let him out at 18 is because finally the Supreme Court said overturned the conviction, correct?
Yes.
And why in the world?
It took them 3 years to do that.
I don't get how, it blows my mind with some of these trial lengths, how long it takes for it to come to trial and then the appeals process. I don't know, man. It seems like you could move through this stuff a little quicker. But
and one of the things I found very interesting in my research, I didn't put it in the story, but I thought we could talk about it, is how her family, like Kinsey's parents, who had this verbal altercation to the point that Harvey had to be removed.
Yeah.
He had threatened their daughter. They had restraining orders against him,
they
protective orders. They were at, I believe it might have been the Supreme Court, like the hearing with him and he was sitting with them, and they were all chummy with him. A man who had threatened their daughter, abused their daughter, whatever.
What? They probably have 100 stories of his abuse and
Yeah.
fighting with their daughter.
Yep.
But
they're going to be with him and still point a finger at an 11-year-old boy.
What is more like?
Which doesn't make a damn lick of sense to me.
What is more likely here to have happened? This 11-year-old who, as far as anyone could tell, had no
sophisticated
issues,
criminal in the world,
or this guy who
had told her,
yeah, I'm going to kill you,
multiple
bitch.
occasions, I'm going to kill you. So that she had to take 2 separate restraining orders out on him within 2 years. 2006, she had one, and then again in 2008.
I don't know. It doesn't add up for me. And it's not just the fact he's 11-year-old, because like I said, some of the most chilling shit I've ever heard or listened to is like interviews with child killers who
Well, I
killed.
just don't think an 11-year-old is such a smart criminal that they're going to be able to hide evidence, to manage to slip out with no residue on their clothing. There's no blood, no DNA. They're going to know to wipe down a weapon, know to throw the shell casing out in the grass.
No, and I will say in the end, there is absolutely no sophistication typically in these child killers that I've seen.
No.
There's no sophistication.
What we've covered, they
call the police and say, I killed my parents.
Yeah, or they go to the mall and they're driving around telling people, hey, guess what? They go to school and say, guess what? I just killed my family. They throw a party with their parents' bodies in the next room, like that kid in Florida. I mean, this kind of thing just does not happen.
No, there was a pair of brothers that they basically shot. Now they were like forced to like live away from the world by their parents, and they had siblings. They killed everyone and left. But I mean, they very quickly found them because there was no sophistication there. So, but this kid is the cleanest of them all. He's that good.
He's like a assassin, like a tiny assassin, just slipping around, Dylan.
I don't believe that he did this.
I don't believe that he did this either.
And I'm sure people could tell that early on in the story that neither of us did believe that. But the evidence there's nothing there to convince me. And I don't think a jury would have ever convicted him on this evidence.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like people are going to have a very emotional reaction to this case and have opinions about it, whether you think he's innocent or you think he's guilty. I think it's the kind of case where people are going to have a strong reaction. Like, there may be someone out there yelling at us like, are you crazy? He did this. It's so obvious. What? And, you know, maybe people feel that way.
We could be wrong.
And maybe we are wrong. But just based on the information that has come out about the story, it's just really hard to wrap your head around that an 11-year-old boy committed this double homicide with such elegance.
Right. And he's never wavered all these years.
Yeah, being held in a case. I mean, most children, especially if they're guilty of something, they're going to admit to it, hoping that that means they're going to get out.
Or they're just going to need to unload it at some point.
Right.
Out of their brain. I mean, it takes a certain kind of person who can just do this and just act like it didn't happen. But then at the same time, you're going to be able to hide that. You're wired like that from professionals. From professional psychiatrists, therapists, and all these people you come into contact with in all these years of being in an institute. I don't think it can happen like that. All right. Well, shit. PA has been doing the damn thing.
Has not disappointed.
No.
I'm telling you, Dylan, we have a banger next week.
It
is another case that is just wow.
So we're going to end our stint in PA.
We are.
With another banger.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All righty.
So my resources today were mostly just various news articles. I didn't have a book or anything. I just read through a ton of, trial information, newspaper articles, interviews with Chris Brown and the law enforcement who worked the case.
I'm sure there was a lot of coverage of this case.
There was a lot of coverage on this case. Absolutely. We just dropped a brand new Patreon episode. I know we talked at the beginning about, you can subscribe to Patreon, but we did just drop a brand new Patreon episode, which covers the murder of Roseanne Quinn. If you are familiar with the movie from the 70s and the very popular best-selling novel Looking for Mr. Goodbar, this is the true story behind the book and film.
Oh, wow.
And we dropped that on Patreon this week.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting case, but we have a lot of interesting stories on Patreon that we have not released to the public. So if you want more true crime, it's the place to get it.
And you can do that for as little as $3.
Damn,
Right?
Dylan, you can.
It's true.
You can.
Tell them where, Heather.
Patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. And if you have a case suggestion for us, something that you would like us to cover, or you have some feedback about an episode, just want to share your opinion, or you have a great listener story for us, you can always drop us an email at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
It's true.
Well, Dylan, we have a chicken roasting right now, and it smells delicious, and I'm very hungry. So let's wrap it up, sir.
All right. Let's until next time.
I'm gonna go grab my ski goggles so I can take a nice walk around in the high 50-degree weather in case a snowstorm comes.
Where you never know when stuff goes in your eye.
That's so true. Bye, Dylan.